All right. You there? Josh?
Yes,
yeah,
I'm here.
Okay, yeah. Well, you're on with me. How are we doing?
Oh, not too bad. How are you doing?
Doing good. We are live at MSC, which is a miracle in itself. A year has passed. Do you remember doing this last year?
Oh, yeah, I do. Back in April. It's actually been a little bit less than a year. 10 months.
True.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah, it was
Came
April.
quick. Went through Christmas, and then here we are.
Now, this is an interesting year for you because this is also the first year you taught.
Yeah, I taught temperature level 1 for sign calibration school.
Boom.
Yeah. Also attended RF and microwave taught by Mark from Avalon.
Right, who is a booth right across from us. This ended up being a lot busier of an MSC than expected. So, and you can actually hear it in the background. I can hear it in our headsets.
Yeah, the exhibit hall is very quickly filling up.
Exciting stuff. So tell me about your teaching experience. How was it for the first time?
You know, I've done it in smaller groups, but doing this sort of setting was a little bit different, obviously.
Yeah.
But glad I did it. You know, a little bit less nervous to do it in the future.
Yeah,
you know,
things
future conferences. You know,
I was just going to say, do you have things that you're going to do different in the future?
Probably more hands-on. You know.
Yeah, getting the balance between hands-on and making sure that, you know, the key information is also passed is difficult in a one-day setting, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wish we all, like almost every class, I wish I had 2 days. Not to pack as much as possible in, but really, you know, teach a little bit and then hands-on, teach a little bit, hands-on. But, you know, when you're everybody has very limited time these days to get that training done. So that's kind of how it goes, right?
Yeah. You know, honestly, I almost saw a need to do a temperature level 2. There were quite a few people from the primary level of temperature in the room.
Really? In yours?
Yeah, someone from Sandia National Labs.
Oh, yeah. Sandia is definitely going to be up there.
And I forget the name, the other lab that was mentioned. But yeah,
No,
all
that's
working
good.
the primary level.
Yeah, that's pretty intense.
In a lab that, you know, actually calibrates SPRTs and uses fixed points.
That's awesome. And so a good refresher for them, maybe,
Yeah, yeah.
for some of them.
But surprisingly, they said they got something out of level 1 as well. You know, a few things that they hadn't heard in other places.
Of course, yeah, yeah. I always say, like, even sometimes as I'm going back through, or like if I haven't taught something for a little while and I go back and review, sometimes it's like, oh yeah, you know, you catch little tidbits that you had forgotten about, or like Martin's stuff, Martin DeGroot, you know, the stuff that I've recorded with him and I working together. Sometimes I'll review that stuff and I'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
It's a lot to remember, in especially temperature.
it's not as important to remember it all the time, but at least to know where to get the information to reference as necessary. You know, you need to at least go through a formal course at some point so you know how to apply it. But
Yeah. Well, and I think you can attest for it. Like, you can have the best manager trainer, and like I've been in that position where I'm trying to train new hires or whatever. But when you're on the job, sometimes it's hard to remember every single bit of core.
yeah, especially if it's
metrology, right?
you know, like what I have during the week. I'm supposed to be doing 15 other things. Someone needs some help, so I go over there, but I have to do it very quickly. You know, you don't have this formal setting where there's no other distractions. You can just focus on this, you know, work through problems, etc.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we also had a keynote, which the keynote speaker was around here just a minute ago. I think I'm going to try and get her on tomorrow. Dr. Helena Stevens. What?
But she helps with sign. Isn't that
She
correct?
does
Yeah,
help with
yeah.
sign. The thing I was going to mention for those that are getting a chance to see this is that we're going to also be sharing the keynote. Well, for Dr. Stevens today, we're going to be putting hers on later. I recorded it. We're going to be putting it on our LinkedIn and all that stuff. But then, hopefully, the future ones like tomorrow, we'll be able to come live at noon here Pacific time, so that if you're interested in watching the keynote speakers, you're in luck. And then I'm also going to try and go around to all of these booths and see, well, at least the ones that are interested in me, you know, broadcasting them, but see what some of them are promoting, or they got some new toys, right?
Yeah, I just briefly spoke to Jack before we got on.
yeah.
And he has
Jack
a few
Zombie.
things he wants to talk about, some new products.
Yeah, that's me a test, right? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is part of the fun of coming here. You know, there's food right now, but then there's also a bunch of booths where you can see what the new toys are. That's what I call them.
Yeah, you know, your company's not and it doesn't have the budget this year to purchase something new. At least you can see it.
Or if you do
Yeah.
have the budget and you want to window shop
Yeah,
a little
yeah,
bit,
yeah.
there's not many places you can window shop equipment, right? Mm-hmm. That's why I want to kind of take a little tour around with, you know, for the viewers at home, so that they can see some of the things here.
Yeah, show the booths.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's we got Mitch. Oh, IndieSoft in the house. Are you coming on again?
I just came on. If you need me to, I will. Yes.
Oh,
Well,
of course. We need you.
privileged to come on again. How's
No,
that
we
sound?
need you.
That sounds great.
All right. Well, we're waiting basically right now for Michael Schwartz, the president of MSE, so that we can chat with him. I'm not sure where he is, though. He's supposed to be here. Do you know where he is?
I haven't seen him in the last 10 minutes, but I'm sure he'll pop up sooner than later. Yeah, part of this conference, you were assessing us for the Train the Trainer program.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was part of it. Yeah. For one of our goals in 2026 is to expand the trainer programs, right? Where it's not just about training all the technicians out there because we have deemed that impossible. How are we going to get to every lab in the country? It's virtually impossible. But I truly believe we can get to every trainer, and obviously there are many labs that don't have trainers right now, right? Like, you can speak to this. What has been your experience as a technician out there? What do you notice training programs usually are like?
Severely lacking or non-existent.
Like, what do they look like? Like, what? That, like, you're a perfect perspective. So you come into.
What
places-
should it look like?
No, what have you seen out there? Is it usually like, hey, we have training once a month? Do they even mention training?
Honestly, not usually. It's
Okay.
usually a lump sum at the beginning, and then on-the-job training after that.
Right.
Which leaves a huge gap that needs to be filled some way or another. Which Sign can definitely fill that gap, or coming to these conferences,
Right.
meeting other professionals and experts in whether it's an RF microwave, temperature, dimensional, etc.
Well, and that's kind of to the point, right? Like, it's not all about sign necessarily, but like we're a good foundational piece to that. But like the whole goal with the trainer program and the instructor is that it's to help you, like, places actually set up that program. Like,
Yeah,
what does
yeah.
that look like? What does a training program? What's a good training program, right? What are the components that should be in there? And sometimes, you've been faced with stuff like this before, when it's the whole project. Like, hey, create a training program that's very ambiguous, and that's a very large ask, right? And so having some of those tools already set up and some of that structure already there, so then you can pick and choose. Hey, we need pressure. Okay, we need this. We need this. We need dimensional. We need electronics, and then you can kind of build things out from there. I think that's going to be a big key for labs. Instead of, hey, let's send technicians off to training. Okay, they come back from training, and then of course what happens? A lot of places, people leave.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, we just spend all this money training somebody. They went and got a job somewhere else. If you're able to retain your trainer, and you put that effort into a trainer, you have that position. Like, imagine that if you have your own trainer position at a lab, and then they are able to duplicate that knowledge, and then we keep them fresh. Of course, there's the tools, right? Like the courses to help you, so you're not like creating pressure courses and temperature the courses everyone needs is what we're trying to develop, right? So that we all know that we need the foundational temperature stuff to do temperature, right?
Right.
And then as you go up, if you need to do SPRTs, hey, yeah, you need that foundational stuff, right? And then you'll need, in your own facility, you'll need training on the standards you might have, right? Because not everyone's going to have the same equipment.
Right.
But having that framework there, and then it's just pick and choose instead of like spending, who knows, like a year or whatever to develop that in-house, right? That's the whole idea.
It's very time consuming to do it right.
It is.
Yeah.
It's kind of time consuming on our end.
It's not just a matter of getting everything you want in there, but wading through what you don't want, what's not
Yeah.
necessary.
And what's the first things that they should go through? What's the second things? I mean, I think you've been around for quite a while in the program, and you've seen the evolution of it. And some of the hardest things is determining, like, what are the first things someone should learn? What's the second things? What is a level 2, quote unquote? Right? What's a level 2 knowledge base? What's a level 3? And it started to, at least on my end, I've started to realize it's the knowledge of where to find the information.
Yeah.
And that sounds easy, but in metrology it's not, because it's in books that are not published anymore, in papers that are on random websites. It's hard to find that stuff. And so having those resources as well, and it's all that stuff that people over the years in their labs, they have that one guy that he knows everything and knows where to find all that stuff. And then when they leave, it's like, how do we know where to find all that stuff?
How have we been doing this?
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
there's probably a logical answer, but left with that person. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So after teaching your first public class, what would you change in the future? Other than more hands-on? Or what did you learn about that? What did you learn about the maybe the teaching aspect of it?
You make it look easy. I can say that first of
Appreciate
all.
that. Nice.
It's not. I'm sure it's not easy doing this day after day. There's a lot to remember because you don't just do temperature. You do
Right.
but dimensional, RF for microwave, torque. You pretty much teach everything that you have on your school, correct, including force, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it is a lot to remember. That's for sure. Yeah. So no major takeaways.
Just trying to stay current on all of it, especially if you're planning on teaching it
Right.
constantly. So it is a lot to remember, especially like if you're just using the PowerPoint to prompt you to say what to do next. You can't put all that on the screen. Otherwise, you're just going to be reading a
it,
PowerPoint.
yeah.
Then why are you there in the first place? So
Yeah. Some of that flow,
practicing
right?
it, practicing the flow, putting in related examples so that you can help clarify the uncertainty of the body of knowledge you're trying to teach.
And then the unknown of the students, right? When they ask you questions that are super random.
Yeah. I tried to apply everything you taught me from the Train the Trainer course we did about a year and a half ago. Implementing it, not only the pictures, you had that, but
Right.
reading, trying to give some examples that could work out. Explaining how the probe should actually be placed. Things of that nature.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point. Sometimes that is the thing that even myself, because I have been teaching for a long time, some of those small teaching skills and just the practice end of it, definitely something that you have to gain over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are you looking forward to the rest of this conference so far?
Probably won't be able to attend any training courses after today, which is okay. I'll be pretty busy with everything else.
With the
But
floor?
yeah, seeing some of the equipment all exhibitors have, getting to see people I haven't seen in years. We're all in our own little disciplines across the country. So unless you're come to one of these events, you don't really see them too often unless you're calling their lab because you're sending something their way. So
Elena, you want to come on?
Oh.
You want to come on?
Mic me up. What am I doing?
Yeah, you're going to come on. Hold on. Here, we got the keynote speaker from today. Here, I'm going to mute that mic real quick as she's getting on. All right, let's see if we can hear you.
There I am.
There, you are there. Well, hello,
Hi,
Dr.
Ryan.
Stevens.
It's I.
How are you?
There's something really special about MSc for me, partly
Okay.
because it's not my field of expertise per se. I'm learning more about accreditation from y'all's side. Like, I understand accreditation on my side, obviously, but I learned so much this time about ISO 17025, and honestly, my mind was just blown by like all the facets of the standards, what it means for what we're doing with emphasis on training and education. So that was really special to learn. I also just feel so valued when I'm here. Like, you guys really think so highly of me, and I wish I could say that's the norm
You're a
in
doctor
higher
of
education. But everybody else
You know what,
on my side of the
actually,
fence doesn't feel that way.
We're going too fast here. So for the people watching, explain who you are.
Oh, okay. So I'm the daughter of a metrologist, but not
That's an important first
not a
step.
metrologist
So you're not
myself.
completely like alien to the fact of what.
No,
everything is.
I grew up around labs. I've been in international labs. I've been in stateside labs. I've been in desert labs. I've been in labs, but I wouldn't have been able to tell you anything about it as a kid. But yes, I grew up around it, and because of my father and his connections, that's how I was able to enter the field, but from my discipline. So my background's in education. I started in the K through 12 systems, and then in pursuing a master's and a doctorate, and also stepping into the field of counseling. I then moved, I guess, up the ranks into higher education. So I've been specifically training counselors for almost 15 years.
Right.
And although my area of expertise is in counseling, I also have to have an area of expertise in education and training, because it's not, we were just talking about this in my department. It's not the same as like a biology professor, for example, who is just imparting knowledge and,
Right.
and entry level 100 classes with 500 students. You just need to digest and kind of move on. am responsible for actually training people how to do things, which means I need to know how to be a trainer.
Right.
I need to know how to be an educator, not just know my discipline. So it's this interesting combine of like, I need to be a really good counselor. I also need to be a really good educator to teach people how to become really good counselors.
And you went through a lot of like education theory and stuff. Like all of us measurement geeks, we love it when theory comes out, right?
Yes. There's a why and a how to everything that we do, just like with micrometers or multimeters, there's a why and a how. Well, when I teach you how to use, I don't know how to use those things, right? But I'm learning. Sometimes I think I'm going to re-career when I'm here.
Hey, possibly.
It's possible.
Of
I'm
course.
fascinated by the science of it. But in the same way that there's a why and a how to the micrometers, how they were made, why they do what they do. It's the same thing with education theory. There's a why to what I do, and then there's a how to I do it. It's just that it's kind of the bubble around whatever the thing is in between, whether it's counseling or micrometers or biology.
Right.
I'm still in this bubble of, or it's still in my bubble of how I'm a teacher. How am I a good teacher? What is grounding my philosophy? What theories am I using? There's a whole science behind it, obviously.
Right.
And that's what I've been bringing into the calibration world is the standard now as I better understand it. I think it's non-negotiable to have legitimized training programs in our labs, no matter what level you're at. If you're accredited or you're seeking accreditation, you got to have that.
Right.
That's how I see that now. So there's a lot of pieces that labs will need, starting from the very beginning with your mission and your vision, creating a whole philosophy for how your training programs will be continuous. That was a big point I wanted to emphasize. It's
Right.
not just when you first get them.
It's
It's
Josh
ongoing.
is just here, right? He
Yeah.
was just on. And we were just chatting about, well, for one, it's Year of the Trainer for us at Sign, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, in that, I asked him, from what he's seen, and he's been to quite a few different labs, different activities, as an employee, what is training like to you in those situations? And it's non-existent. It's like you just said, it's all in the beginning, and then
You
and
just
it's
go.
just, yeah.
And you know what's interesting about that is it's not just calibration, it's kind of engineering as a whole. There's an assumption you've got your bachelor's, you're going to go in and you're going to do the thing. But I've learned through my husband, who's a very skillful engineer, there's so much that he has to continue to learn, but he has to teach it to himself. So even these students who come from accredited programs who go into international-based companies, they don't have a training infrastructure either. And I'm listening to my husband lament over this, and I'm just like, so this is a problem across engineering disciplines in general.
Yeah.
And to me, it makes sense because I don't know why labs would conceptualize having legitimized training programs. Like if you think about it, it's like, well, you need to be skillful in the technical side. You need to be able to do all the procedures and do the basic functions. So maybe I impart some knowledge. Or today we talked about the difference in watching a YouTube versus getting a 9-page manual, because I said I will never read a 9-page manual. I'm pathetic in that way, but I own it. But then somebody I own it. They cross-reference, but this younger generation, this newer generation, they also don't want to read manuals. So we've got these antiquated practices that just meet the bare minimum to get text through, and there's no vision for anything else. But I would I think defend, but why would you have it? I have it because I have to have it. So how do I get you to see the importance in having it? Well, the standard was the big thing for me. It's not just my opinion. This is what the standard is telling you to do, so we got to help you how to do it, though.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that I think the first iteration of the school, we didn't, the whole goal was to be, okay, this is kind of like YouTube. We're trying to make it approachable to the younger generation, all that stuff. And then as time went on, there were a few things that once you get past that initial, and you're getting to the professional, and we call it lab level now, right? So when we get to that, we need to be able to open a manual and dissect certain things.
Yeah.
But the challenge is with the newer generation, or how things are going right now, is how do you integrate that to where it isn't boring? And strangely enough, we've been doing some activities and stuff where you dip in and out, right? You're not 9 pages at a time. You're more trying to find something.
Yes. And so I will say manuals have their place, and I made that point this morning too. I'm not demonizing them. It's more when are they relevant and how are they relevant? So it's like engagement time. Realistically, with an adult, you've got maybe up to 15 minutes of engagement.
Sure.
And we don't even know how fast these kids read. So 15 minutes could be one page. And then it's
Yeah.
like, I've got 9 more. Now, I assign textbook chapters as a part of my job. But I also know fully well that most of my students are not reading all of them. Like, I accept that, but
Right.
I have to assign it. I also put it
You're
on.
hopeful,
I'm
but, yeah.
optimistic. Some of them will read it. And it's abundantly clear when they have it because of the questions they ask me. And then I know, you're not doing what I asked you to do. And that's just a part of the territory that comes with. But I would say, manuals and written materials have to have their place too. They're an important fallback because you can't be the primary all the time. It can't just be ask me, listen to me, I give you. You know, like there has to be supplemental things for people to go back to. Otherwise, you're doing too much work. And they need to be self-sufficient. They need to be able to read and digest and analyze, kind of like or just lost it, the Bloom's taxonomy.
Right.
We need them to be able to do
Yeah.
certain executive functions. At the same time, what you just said is really important too. How am I empowering them to do some self-directed learning? We call that flipped classroom in my neck of the woods. I give you something to work with. You go and you do the work. You come back and you let me know, and then we kind of
Yeah.
decide together where it's at. I think entry level, that can be hard for them because there's still so much that is new.
They don't know what to ask.
They don't know what to ask. So
Right.
there is a lot of didactic learning in the beginning. But as we talked about today, as they move in the levels, which we want them to, and we want them to be able to do what we call pathologizing, identifying the problem, solving the problem, coming up with like a treatment plan, so to speak.
Yeah.
We have to help them get there. And in order for them to get there, they've got to practice it. They've got to do it. They've got to try it, which means our approaches have to transform from didactic to really experiential, constructivist, collective approaches, team-based learning. Otherwise, only a select few are inherently going to get there on their own just because they're high IQ individuals.
Yeah.
That's not the bulk of our people, though.
And I feel this ties in. I also want to bring up what you mentioned today in your keynote, where you're after the questions or during the questions with the buy-in. Right?
Yeah.
The one thing I didn't want to jump into the whole thing, but you know the real answer for a lot of these people that buy-in that
Yeah.
you're talking about is because we're trying to hire anybody. Like there's no external force pushing like. Man,
There's
I
not
wanna,
a direct
I
pipeline,
want to be
yeah.
a metrologist, like,
Yeah.
and like someone's like born and like, you know, they watch movies about being a metrologist and they like
Sure.
dream about being a metrologist someday. Like that doesn't exist, right? Where like people do dream about being a teacher or like a doctor or whatever.
Or even a therapist. Like there's
Yeah.
movies about us too.
Exactly. But there is no push, and so people come in and, like you said, do they understand how important they are? And usually the answer is no, right? They don't understand that at all. So, you know, it's challenging, and we got here because we were such a good secret,
Yeah.
and we all came from the military, and then now
And now
that's
it's
dried
opening
up,
up,
and it's
yeah.
like, wow, we really didn't do ourselves any good, right?
But I think the profession is in a prime position to let the floodgates in, because as I mentioned earlier, you have there's a lot of sectors that you can partner and build relationships with that will create more natural pipelines for you. I think if like engineering students understood how close they are to metrology, they're closer than they're not, and that it's a wide open job market and you can go internationally with it, I think that's an attractive buy-in point. And like I mentioned earlier, high school students who have no interest in pursuing 4 to 6 years of higher education, because there's a lot in the media and in social medias and other mediums that is very anti-higher education. It's
Right.
not worth the dollars. The money you're going to make coming out the gate, it's not going to justify the cost.
Right.
And that was always the case. It's just kids know that more now because we have it out there in the media. They can be more discerning. And so be it. So go straight into the calibration field.
Right.
Why not create it like an apprenticeship or a tradesman program? Because, again, how is it so different from an electrician apprenticeship? Or it's not plumbing. Don't get me wrong, I know it's not
Well,
plumbing. But like the
but
concept
it
of an
is.
apprenticeship
It
to
is.
learn
It
a
is
trade
perfect
and
for
become
apprenticeship.
certified.
We thought about putting together, I mean, you've been in these discussions, but we've talked about doing that. Like, there needs to be a framework for that, right? Like, there's not an industry-wide accepted apprenticeship, which, at least that I'm familiar with. Forgive me if there is, but I think that is the key. And we talk a lot about that stuff, like standardization, all that stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And people always, you know, wonder, like, well, we have the ability to train this stuff in-house and stuff. And it's like, everybody understands that. We hope you have like a lot of that knowledge
Right.
in-house, right? Like the point is not having to reproduce that all the time, or
Right.
having to use your manpower like you were saying earlier.
So I think
Okay.
I had my train of thought. And where did it go? Somebody's question earlier was like what do we do next? And I see MSC or other, I guess, relative organizations that I'm not familiar with as kind of like holders of the responsibility to do more. If you have a leadership position in a national organization, what are you doing with that sphere of influence? If we're going to create new pipelines with these entities that I think are prime opportunities, how are they learning about metrology? There's a program, it's a national one, it's called ACE, and it's for engineering, construction, manufacturing, that kind of, I was almost going to say blue collar, but it's not blue collar, but jobs within the STEM field specifically related to engineering, construction, and manufacturing.
Okay.
And so they partner with universities and high schools, and they have a whole program, and it's geared towards kind of underserved individuals who may not otherwise pursue these careers because they don't believe that they can. That's another big thing in this. Who believes that they can become an engineer? That feels like I could never become an engineer. I believe I could become an engineer now that I've been coming to MSC. I believe I could do it. But in high school, if you're not good at calculus and you're not good at chemistry, you're never really gifted the mindset of like, but you could still do something in the engineering field. There's
That's a
so
good
much
point, yeah.
out there. So if metrology found its way into the high school doors, because there's already programs out there, and this ACE program specifically, the kids get to go to different companies, do on-the-job training, learn about these careers. They learn networking. They learn how to, do partnerships and get their foot in the door. Why wouldn't metrology do something like that? But this is like really big dreaming. Who's going to do it? Who's going to be national? That's going to start something. But I think that's where we have to start thinking is how do we recruit the younger generation in, since it's not just our military individuals coming out the
Right.
door to us.
Well,
Create partnerships and get them in the door and show them, yes, you can do this, and look how cool this actually is.
Well, and it's one of those things that if you look at, so I found my way into Cal, right? Who was I coming out of high school? I was someone that was not wanting to go to college. I wanted, that's the service was like a perfect one because I could dabble in college as I went
Sure.
along, right? But like college wasn't my first thought. But I did very well on the ASVAB and things like
Yeah.
that. So competence was there, or some sort of intelligence was there, right? Where it's like those, the type of person we're talking about are those that, it's not like the doors aren't closed out of high school, right? Like high school is a mess.
Yeah.
School system is a mess. There are a ton of jobs and a ton of professions like metrology that are very easy to branch out from, like you mentioned. I told one of my kids. I tell my own children this stuff. I'm like, if you want to do Cal, just go into college or something. You can
Yeah.
make money. And there's places like I always talk about like this place, Edwards Life Science in Salt Lake City. I remember there were people that worked in the metrology lab there, and they got a scholar. They had like college match, like the tuition match from Edwards. It's like,
That's neat.
and people were just going to college there. It's like, see, that's an easy route to
Yeah.
get through some of those.
How many
things
people
that-
know about these things, though?
Zero,
Visibility,
Yeah.
exposure. And so it goes back to the tall order of, like, who's going to start a movement for these things. But I think if somebody doesn't at least start the dialogue to build a movement, the recruitment pool is going to kind of die up. It's going to become harder. I think, we're having a hard time in higher education with this. Keeping our enrollment up is a challenge, especially, like, we have the COVID generation coming through now. Those who
Well,
were in high school
You
coming
guys
out.
you guys got with the what is it, the loans also that was rough on a lot of people.
And
But-
tuition only keeps going up.
right.
Wait, it's
Got to pay for the college football players.
I gotta pay for my salary.
That too.
because my
You're
cost
worth
of
it.
living. I would like to think so, but as I've said to you before, the opportunities that have come with Sign and from coming to MSC, I just keep my eyes open for new opportunities to just see where my expertise and abilities can take me, and I'm excited for what I see ahead. Because
Yeah.
maybe I'm the person who starts the dialogue, Ryan. I'm saying, who's going to do it? Maybe it's me. I don't know.
No,
Maybe it's Sign.
We have about 10 minutes until Schwartz is coming on.
Yeah.
Do you mind telling me about the keynote? How did you feel about it?
I've done some big speaking engagements. I've had rooms of hundreds of people, standing room only, packed out. This felt like the most important thing I've ever done. Out of all-
Really?
yes, because I was just sharing with Ronnie. When you do something all the time and you know it like the back of your hand, you don't feel the pressure to deliver because you know
Sure.
that. But I know that I don't know a lot about metrology, and I continue to learn so much. I learned so much this morning just from my participants that it was important to me to pivot my keynote and to really rein it in with the ISO standard. Like I understood kind of ISO, but I didn't really, like I was sharing earlier, I didn't really understand the big implication that like
Right.
it's non-negotiable to have a legitimate training program. So
Right.
then it wasn't even just, well, here are some theories and here are some models. It's like, yeah, you need to be doing this. Like I wanted the first point to really hit home of you have to adopt this vision and mindset, or the mindset and thusly the vision for your companies that you're going to do it because you want it to be accredited.
Well, and
So-
I definitely found your future in these things. I like that where you're like pulling in people and like, all right, tell me all the juice.
Yeah.
Tell me all the
I
good
love
and the
the
bad,
learning
yeah.
that I get from it. And it's what's been most interesting now that I've done 2 tutorials 2 years in a row is that a lot of people actually really understand much of what we bring in about train the trainer stuff. They understand, and some people are already doing it, but the theme that keeps coming up, and this was my point about disconnection in my keynote, is you have senior leadership that doesn't want to deal with it. You got mid-level management that doesn't want to deal with it.
Right.
And then they're like, you need to deal with it because literally I don't want to deal with it. That was a consistent theme earlier today, and it was a theme last year too, is we don't have infrastructural support. And I hope that point really came through today of connecting, getting together. I mean, just how often do you come down at the lowest level to understand where your people are at and what they need? I think it's a common occurrence that companies can be segregated like that. The negative impact,
But
though, is so
you know-
pervasive.
You know, what you're saying, though, yeah, I mean, so Train the Trainer is a fully active program for us now. And part of that was added in there is that training needs analysis and
Yeah.
actually going to the technician level. And because we have many different tools, right? We have
Mm-hmm.
surveys, we have interviews, we have performance evaluations, like all
Sure.
these different tools. But notice how many of those are actually talking to people and getting their feedback.
It's very interactive.
Yeah.
That was a point I made in my tutorial
Yeah.
today. Was there's a lot on you, the person side, to do this, and that's
Exactly.
okay. And I felt pretty mighty when I said nobody wants to do assessment. We know that you guys don't want to do it, and I think
No.
I know why you don't want to do it. But you're only hurting yourselves.
No one likes to be tested.
We don't want to know that our people don't know things. But the irony, Ryan, is that we do know that they don't know things.
But it also goes on the trainee part, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
there's so many times, like me being an external trainer is always a benefit because they're not worried about me knowing they don't know something usually.
Sure.
Usually. And it's if their manager's teaching them something, a lot of times they're like, oh, I don't want to look like I'm dumb. It's like,
Yes.
well, we don't just osmosis this information into ourselves. We have
Right.
to train.
We have to validate that
Yeah.
it's a developmental learning process. And one of the things that came up not in the keynote this morning was about supervision and leadership styles. And that feels like if I'm coming back to MSC again, we're branching out with Sign, we need to get leaders and supervisors and program managers in because their lack of relational skills tends to be where we're killing it. That people are afraid to ask for help. They're afraid to I don't know. And that's a common human occurrence, but there's ways to remedy that.
What is that? Tell me. Why is that a common human occurrence? I don't understand. Why?
Psychologically speaking, none of us like to feel threatened or at risk. And to say that you don't know something puts you at risk for a negative reaction. for punishment. And if these guys are coming from the military, well, what happens when you ask for help in the military or say you don't know?
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
It's not a thing
Or
that
it's
we do.
Yeah, or if you're, sometimes it seems like at a certain level I'm supposed to know this stuff. Right?
Yes,
Or-
there's a lot of, and we're dealing primarily with males who, in our society here, there's high expectations for knowing and doing, and less acceptance for lack thereof. So
Right.
we're working against some forces, culturally, developmentally, societally, but again, I primarily work with men in my clinical practice, and it doesn't take a lot to break through that ice. You got to model it. You got to sometimes show them how to do it, and then you give them affirmation, validation. But you got to be trained that we train our counselors how to do that.
Sure.
Some of us, that's inherent in just like our core spiritual being, but it's a foundational part of our training program. It's the very first class they take, just how to validate and reflect. So if it's important for our master's levels counseling students and we don't expect them to know it, how much more important is it for like leadership and calibration?
Right.
We just got to teach you a different language.
But we're busy.
Same, bro.
But we're so busy.
We are so busy. And that's what I hear.
Is one day a
all
month
the
enough? That's the
time.
question.
You never know. So my favorite question to ask, and I asked it today, is what did you take away? Because you never know. And the power of 1 hour, the power of one day,
Sure.
you just never know. So to me, it's better to do than to not do. And that was my ethos today. It's better for me to just bring it in the keynote and hone in on some specific pieces. Like, I don't think that, when I heard this in my tutorial today, people really understand what it looks like until you break it down. There's actually 3 levels of this. There's actually subdivisions. It's not just once upon a time, boom, we're done. Look at what this means.
Right.
Now accept where you need help. And as I said, it's better for you to just see it now than to feel like, oh no, I'm doing too much or it's not going to stick. I need to give you something. And that's where it felt really, I guess, pressureful is I get one shot to do this. And I want to make sure I do it right, because it's not enough to just say, well, you need to do it. Well, if I'm the expert, I need to put my money where my mouth is and
Yeah.
give something. And I do
I
feel
get it.
like what I gave was, by looking at people in the audience, their faces, was eye-opening. There was some buy-in from it, and potentially some overwhelming feelings, or like, we have no time for this is never going to happen. But knowing is half the battle. And if you know now,
And you're also going to have those times where, or some of those people, some of them are new enough that they don't even, the things you're mentioning, they're not even aware of yet.
right.
They're just new.
But think about now that they know some things. I don't know. The more my
It's- no, it's
students
gonna
end
be
up
great.
knowing sometimes, they push back on me, and I give out grades. I am the authority, and they're still willing to push back. So just think, if we're going to change the culture, everybody's got to have a hand in the pot.
Absolutely.
And so now the newbies, they know, and the seniors, if they've heard it before, well, you got an outsider coming in and being like, yo, what are we doing? Here's what we
Exactly.
need to. So I hope there was a good audience there, a lot of people, I think, at different diverse levels from all over the world.
I think so. Yeah.
I think they
We
heard
have
me.
Canada here, and what were some of the other ones? I forgot.
We
of
get
them.
some people from South America sometimes too.
Mm-hmm.
No, I do think the message got across, and I walked away feeling like
No, you
I
did great.
I did a good job.
Well, and then so what's next for Sign is certified trainers now, and then certified instructors.
Yes.
So we gotta.
I'm excited.
We're gonna have to build that framework for a standardized instructor. Like, what does that entail, right?
Oh my minions! I'm gonna just create.
Well, it
little
was fun
minions.
watching some of these guys teach, and it's like, some of the simple things, like someone asks a question, repeat the question, so like just class command type things. Some of those need to be added in. But really, I got independent feedback on all of the instructors so far, and all great feedback. So
That's great.
it seems like it went well.
I think so. I'm just grateful to be here, and I am looking forward to. Somebody was like, well, as long as as long as Disneyland is still here, she'll come back. It's true.
That's the party here, right?
I love it.
Well, Helena,
That's awesome.
I appreciate you coming on, and
Sure.
appreciate you being the keynote speaker.
I'm really honored.
So next year, well, hopefully you can offer the train the trainer every year, and
love
especially
to.
as we kind of refine down what's the 1 day program, because for those listening, like the train the trainer is like 4 sessions over time, right? Where
Yeah.
if I do it with a company, it's that job task analysis. We actually look over it and stuff like that. Or you can't really do that here in a half day or a full day.
No,
Even
and
a full
I
day,
built
right?
off of last year's, and I brought in even more like my side of the discipline. And we got through we actually got through all the content, but we're just scratching the surface. And
Yeah.
I have resources and activities I want them to do, and I would love to have more time for them to finish and give feedback. And so it's like, for all the things that I brought in, I think I had 4 different sections. It could be 2 days. Honestly, if we really wanted to give them time to nurture the development, we need a day next year, I think, at least.
For sure. All right, we're gonna do that. Okay, I'm gonna put the stream on break for just a minute as we wait for Mike here, and then so if you are watching, we will be right back in about probably 4 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's see how we sound. Well, hello,
Testing.
Mike.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing.
We have the Schwartz is with us. Mike, how are we doing? President of the MSC 2026. How does it feel to finally at least get the show on the road, right?
Oh man, busy days. Typically, I'd come to these shows and I'd tell people that, yeah, we can try to talk at some point, but I've got so many things going on. Just being an exhibitor. Now that I'm on the board and the president this year, there's so many little questions we've got to take care of.
Yeah.
Just to get to this venue, there was a 56-page contract.
That's a lot.
And it gets down to everything. Where are these tables getting set? How many chairs are around the table? Everything is put together so when they hand it off to the team that runs the hotel, they know exactly what they have to do and when they have to do it.
Right. They have a procedure ready.
Yep. So I never thought that much went into doing one of these shows, but I saw it last year at Disney because I was the vice president. They wanted to prepare me for what I was doing here this year.
I was going to ask you, was there anything this year that came up that was a surprise?
Actually, this year's been very, very smooth. There hasn't been, anything once we got here. The one thing that happened was, the lunch where you were recording that big screen.
And that will be on the LinkedIn by the morning, so people will be able to watch it.
So that big screen that was back there, right, that
Yeah.
took like $18,000 out of my budget. I could not believe the cost of getting that there. So, and that started, getting me a little bit worried about, keeping the conference alive.
Yikes, yeah.
We can't run in the red and the red and the red year after year and keep the organization alive. But what's really helped is I started off this year with an OKR. So I took this from how Intel and Google does things with their management system. So OKRs are objectives and key results.
Okay.
And when you put these objectives and key results together, you don't want to create objectives that are easy to do, where it's just a check, a check, a check. Yeah, we
Right.
can do that. So my OKR, and one of the things that they want you to do in OKRs are have objectives that are achievable, but extremely difficult. Right. So my OKR was to double the attendance at MSC.
Which is, it would be difficult, but it is achievable.
And I looked at it when I put it together. As I said, I'm probably not going to do it in a year, but I'm going to roll from president to chairman of the board. So I get 2 years to work on this.
Right.
So that's an advantage. But one of the things I'm very, very happy with is because of the government shutdowns and things that are going on right before the conference.
Right.
I haven't even checked the news to see if they've got a bill.
They passed it, yeah.
They passed the
Yeah.
bill? Okay.
It was looking bad for a second, but luckily it did pass today.
So now that they've got the bill in, we might get a few Navy people in tomorrow. But right now, we're 27% more people than we were last year as far as paid attendees.
I was going to say,
Navy.
you got to be happy with the turnout. And some people did say that the podcast helped. So, hey,
Yes.
they did hear about it through.
I haven't met him, but John told me that somebody came all the way down from Canada because he heard about the podcast. And I heard today, I don't know how he heard about this, but I heard somebody today came across from Mexico
Oh, wow.
and is attending the conference. So that's really good.
That's awesome. Yeah, because we did have a lot of international travelers for the, what was it, ITS? But that's international temperature symposium. It's supposed to be international. So
Yeah. When they do the ITSs every 10 years, those become big conferences, and there's a lot more foot traffic because, ITS puts together this book of all the papers that were presented there, and that, having your name in that book, now everybody in the world knows you as a temperature expert, and, if you're working for some of these universities or working for an NMI, it really all comes down to how often are you getting published, and then after that, how often do people reference your papers?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That's a good point.
And the favorite from ITS 10, the favorite video or the favorite picture that I have is this guy who didn't get to do a regular presentation. So somebody looked at it and said, no, that's not going to be a big turnout for whatever reason, and they moved him to the poster presentation. But this guy's sitting there with his laptop, and there's like 15 people around him in an arc looking at what he's doing on his laptop.
Yeah, should have been a full presentation, huh?
Yep. And everything he did went completely over my head because I'm not a temperature guy.
Sure.
But yeah, that was, MSCs of the past. And
Yeah. I like that. And again, I'm going to post your first keynote as well. But I do like that you brought up that, one of the core aspects of MSC is scholarships and things like that.
Yep, that's a good segue into the thing that I'm. So as I came on the MSC board, I've exhibited here for 25 years, 26 years. 2001 was the first time
That's
I
a
came
long time.
out. So I've exhibited here 4 years, and I've met so many people here, and
So
like the
2000?
community. No, it was 2001. That was the first
2001.
time I exhibited here.
I was in Japan.
And I've just met all the people and whatnot, and I like the organization. And, when somebody came in and volunteered me, do I want to be on the committee? I was like, him. And they said, well, you could really help with exhibits, and that was ITS 10. So I was the exhibits chair in ITS 10.
Gotcha, okay.
Unfortunately, the previous exhibits chair, Bernice, she passed away. And I came in to be an exhibits chair with zero training.
Gotcha.
So I sat back and said, how can I organize this? What can I do? You know, and one of the things I did that first year, because, you know, image is everything.
Yeah.
One of the things I did that first year is I took that entire back wall of exhibitors out. I wiped out 45, 50 booths.
Wow.
And they said, no, we're going to sell those. And I said, well, when we sell them, we can put them back. But when you walk this exhibit floor, there's one empty booth. And John's in that booth turning pins instead of right next to us.
Sure.
And then
Yeah,
the other
yeah.
the
Like
other
last year.
change is Sheila can't walk behind us.
Right.
So,
No car, though, this time.
yeah, no cars. As I found out, Southern California has changed their rules. The counties changed their rules. And it's much, much harder to get a car
In the span of a year.
in a span of a year.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
yeah, well, what happened last year? They had that huge fire out here,
Oh, right.
right?
Yeah.
So
Good
now
point.
anything that can create a fire, you know, it's a whole nother, you know, whole nother game because they're trying to minimize.
And we
what
didn't
could
start
happen.
the fire, though.
Yeah, we did not start the fire. So, but this year, you know, the exhibit floor is full, you know, and then back to the scholarships because I really want to talk about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Coming onto the board, or coming onto the committee and then coming onto the board, I learned more and more of the history. And, you know, there's the history that we put on the web, and then there's the history that, you know, people know, but, you know, they know and they really don't talk about.
Well, and we got to be honest, how many people spend time perusing the entire history on the web? You know?
So, but one of the things I found out was one year, MSC had no money in the bank, and that they had to go out and borrow money. And they borrowed money from a member at a really low interest rate. But they had to borrow money to pay for the things that you have to do to put on a show.
Sure.
You know, there's just money that you have to put up front, and there was no money for that. So they did the show. They were successful. But the thing that impressed me the most as I'm talking about this history is that year, Measurement Science Conference still did a scholarship.
That's awesome.
So even they're facing bankruptcy and whatnot, they looked at what's their core value. What are we going to give up on? What are we not going to give up on? We can eat less meals. We can give out less drink tickets. We can, you know, we can.
Eagle cover band. No.
Yep.
The
Yeah.
Eagles cover band.
Yeah. I don't know any bands I could make fun of. So, who's the guy who does the folk music that can't really sing? He doesn't have a voice.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I got to think of his name, but he's one of the guys I could pick on if I remembered his name. But that year they did the scholarship, you know, and as I look at this, and
Do you remember what year that was?
I do not remember what year that was, and I
Is
don't.
it 80s, 90s, or do you know?
Oh, we're talking 2000s.
Oh, cool.
If I had to guess, because I haven't asked the actual year, but if I had to guess, I would say it'd be a 2008, 2009. Those were some slim years
Oh,
every
yeah,
year.
around the nation. Housing
Yeah.
crisis.
Yep. And it was the year that, you know, years before I knew about, you know, anything going on.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, but yeah, to me, it's just very impressive that the people that were there. So when I came in and started looking at, I look at story, right? What is an organization? What is the story? What is it that they're about? And getting that story put together to where you can tell the world, you know, what's your story?
Right.
That I look at that and I'm like, guys, we need to be telling people about the scholarships. So one of the things I found out, and it wasn't a surprise, but one of the things I found out is there's a perception that you have to be in Southern California to win a scholarship.
Oh,
But that's not true.
sure.
So we have a scholarship winner this year from New York. She's from New York. And we've got a scholarship winner this year who's from Mississippi.
Right.
And they yelled at me yesterday because I said Louisiana.
I wasn't near enough to yell it to you, but
So, but in my defense, every time I visit them, I fly into Baton Rouge, or I fly into, what's the capital, or the big city there?
in New Orleans?
New
you
Orleans,
played?
yeah. I fly into New Orleans, and then I go across the border to see them. And there, you know, the NASA facility is like 2 or 3 miles
Right.
from the border.
Yeah.
So easy mistake to make.
Yeah. Yeah. New Orleans is kind of the major hub coming into there.
Yep.
Yeah. Even when I was going to school in Biloxi, that you fly in New Orleans and then they bus you over.
Yep.
One of those Greyhounds.
So, but yeah, all in all, the conference has been good. Another little thing I want to brag a little bit, because
Please. How about it?
I'm not the one who's doing this. I'm the enabler, is really what it is. I'm the guy who tells somebody, when you do something, I got your back. Well, a question came up today. Can we let the Navy people who come out tomorrow, can we let them come to the President's reception? I'm like, you don't have to ask me about that. You work with the Navy guys. If you think it's going to be worthwhile to bring people in next year, by all means, let them come into the President's reception. So I'm an enabler. So it's the team that's really doing the things.
Sure.
I'm just sitting back saying, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. But this year we managed to get 5 NIST classes here, 4-hour to multi-day. We've got 24 tutorials. Right, so that's good. We literally had to take our 4-page flyer, and we had to convert it to a 6-page flyer because we got 5 pages of content.
5 of which were signed, sponsored, and I've already gotten feedback from students from those, and they actually went really well. So I'm very happy with how that went.
That's good, because I've heard several people come up and talk about the quality of training they've got here in the tutorials, the technical training in this.
Right. Yeah.
So I have yet to hear somebody come up and say, "Oh God, I hated coming out here."
Yeah.
So we're selecting, good people, and we're always looking. So out there in the audience, if you know a topic and you're competent in that topic and you want to come out and teach, by all means, hit us, because we're always looking to keep a nice, full, well-balanced class. We had to do some shuffles because there were some classes that we saw pharmaceutical wanted to hit. So we wanted to make sure we didn't have 2 pharmaceutical classes on the same day where you had to pick and choose. So we would move a class over and bring it back. Looking down the list, there's RF and microwave. We didn't double stack the RF and microwave classes, move some things around. So things like that.
I also think the Hyatt has been a winner. I really have, and other people also have mentioned that this has been a good experience here, just so that you know.
Yep. I will say it's on the same level. So far, the quality of service that we've got with Disneyland.
Yeah.
We're just, love Disneyland, but we're a good, $150, $200 less a room night.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah. And it's not like you're really missing out on anything.
Yep.
In my opinion, these are all my opinions, not Mike's opinions. I'm just saying. But, I've gotten a lot of really good feedback this time around. So. Sounds like everything went well.
Yep.
It's going well. So what else is coming up this week? So obviously today was the everyone obviously is coming in on the exhibitor side. Tomorrow's full exhibits opening at what time in the morning?
Exhibits are all day. They'll open up at 7 o'clock, so you can do
7,
breakfast.
wow.
So you're going to come in and get your breakfast at the end of the exhibit hall.
And is the exhibit free?
The exhibit hall is actually free, so you can
Yeah,
come
I
in
thought
and
you said
register,
that, yeah.
and you can come in and visit with all the exhibitors. And the one thing that I pushed and I pushed and I pushed for, and I finally got the vote on the board, and when I changed it, it wasn't a 4-3 decision. It was there was one person who abstained, so we were really a 6. We might have been a 6-1, but there was one person who abstained, which was really good. But the thing I pushed for was, I think that shows, if they're going to survive, they've got to create a relationship with their exhibitors.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the thing that would always frustrate me, one, me giving a technical paper somewhere, but, 2, the relationship that they have with the, trying to get a person to come in and give you content, that's valuable content. But then you turn around and tell them, but you can't talk about your product.
Right. Yeah.
And I'd sit in these presentations and I'd hear, we've got this device and it works just like all the other devices out there. And this device is, similar to, but I only have access to my company's device, model X, Y, and Z. So all of my examples are going to be around that. I'm like, why don't you just let them say, using it as an example, Fluke 5560, this is how you use this device. This is how you set it up correctly. This is how you take a measurement off the meter. And just let the exhibitors come in and do what we're calling sponsored content.
Yeah, and I like that, yeah.
So not only, once I got that pushed through, then I'm the kind of guy that I'm going to challenge things, right? So as soon as I did that, I challenged the status quo. We're a training organization. Let's be a training organization. Let's take all of that sponsored content and let's open that up to the public.
Yeah.
So if anybody comes in tomorrow or Wednesday and registers with the MSC, they can come in and visit the exhibit hall. And there's 4 classes on Wednesday that are free. They're the B-track/sponsored content. And then Thursday they can come in and there'll be 2 classes in the morning that are absolutely free.
Because Thursday people start funneling out about half day, right?
So we're going to shut down the exhibit hall
at noon. Yeah.
And then we're going to have some people can come over and do the AI plenary session. And that's going to be, me talking to people in the industry who are doing things with AI and getting them to, stand up in front of the group or set up in front of the group and field questions, and I know that somebody's going to show up and they're going to be in the audience that's probably smarter than, the guys on the stage, especially smarter than me when it comes to AI.
Sure.
But I look at it as being, that learning opportunity. And then also
It's a discussion that needs to be had.
And then also I'm going to walk down there after and give him my business card and see if he wants to be on the committee.
Nice, yeah. Snag them when you can, right? Yeah, AI is one of those that, who is truly an expert? Because we all know that it's going to change so much in the next 5 to 10 years that stuff that we're doing now is not going to be the same as later. We're all in this together in the journey, right? And we know it's going to affect our industry.
I did a presentation last October in Metrology Days in Germany.
Sure.
With 1A Cal. He invited me out there.
Oh, nice.
And one of the questions that came out of the audience was, we should not start AI in metrology. We shouldn't start with metrology and AI. And I didn't answer it correct at the time. But as, I thought about it for 10 minutes, I'm like, we didn't start with AI in metrology.
Right.
We started with AI in everything else.
Right.
And now it's coming into metrology.
Right. Yeah, I actually saw, and forgive me, I don't have the exact company name on me right now, but there's a nationwide listing right now for calibration technicians for an AI company that is trying to validate their AI software to help metrologists and stuff. They're doing it for all industries, right?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. It's impossible if you're going to sit there with your head in the sand and say, hey, no, we're not doing AI. It's people are doing AI and they're going to keep doing AI. And so you can either be a part of the future or,
So an interesting thing that happened to me this morning is I was coming down on the elevator and somebody asked me a question and I didn't know the question. So I had to walk down and I had to pick up a flyer and answer his question. Well, then what I did is I took my AI and I told it to scrape the MSC website. So you can go in here and ask a question like, what booth is Fluke at?
Fluke is located at booths number 213 and number 215 at the MSC Training Symposium. They have a double booth set up in the 200 aisle, situated right between Druck, number 211, and Aditel, number 212 and 214.
Nice.
Since you're at the conference now, keep in mind that the exhibit hall closes for the day at 6 p.m., which was about 50 minutes ago, but it will reopen tomorrow morning at 7 a.m.
Well, that was
Would you like
wrong.
me to find the booth location?
Not tonight, AI. It's not closed tonight at 6.
So the AI again is going to get some questions wrong, and this is actually a great segue into the next thing I wanted to mention.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is I was doing some work with a customer of mine in Boston, so I'm in Cambridge.
Sure.
And right next to my hotel, there's this great little bar that has, live music and other things. So I was sitting in there and just, sitting at the bar, drinking a beer, talking to the guys around me. And at that bar were people who work for Google on Google's AI.
Wow.
Right? So, this is great. And we're
Gemini?
well, not Gemini. They're not on the Gemini project because there's other AI projects.
Sure. Okay. I got you.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But we start talking about, what they're doing and, what I'm doing. And the conversation is going really, really well and whatnot. The only place that we kind of lost things is I started talking about my rig. Right, so my computer that I built, and these guys had no idea about building, a computer to go do AI stuff. Right, because they're Google. They're just going to go spin up their server farm.
Wow. You would think they would know something about it.
But once I explained to him that, the industry uses the term rig to talk about building their gaming computer or something like that, they're like, oh, okay. And then it went into what card do you have? And I'm, I'm like, I'm not rich. I couldn't buy a 5090, so I got a 5070 card in there.
Yeah, 5090 is a big spend right now.
Yeah. So, and my thought process is, when they come out with the 6090, then I'll go buy myself a 5090.
Right.
And get it a fraction of the price.
Now you're on the sign model.
Yes.
That's what I do.
Yes.
I'm always about a year behind, but because I started in my whole journey in the school, starting with 1080p programming, and then now it's 4K. At the time when I started in 2018, when we started producing it, it was expensive to edit 4K. Now it's not.
Yeah.
And so that computing power has changed, obviously.
Yep, keeps going down and down. But the interesting part about what they did at Google, and I went back and researched it and whatnot, so in 2024 to 2026, Google started a project where they want to sit back and they want to look at the statistical variations. So what these guys are doing is they're taking the same model, they're taking the same augmented data, and they're taking the same prompt and the same prompts, and they're spinning up 10,000 servers.
Wow.
And they're looking at the statistical variation of the prompt when you get the data out.
Interesting.
And they have this prompt and the next prompt and the next prompt, and they're trying to understand that statistical variation. And I'm sitting there going, well, that's metrology, right? And
validation.
Yeah. What's going on with this? And it's amazing when you sit back and you type the prompt into ChatGPT or Gemini, you type the same prompt in, you don't always get back the same answer. That's the AI. There's a randomness to this.
Sure.
And it's figuring out, can we control that randomness once we know we've got the correct answer?
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
That it doesn't. So the example that came up today in the class is we were talking about, prompting something with the AI that says meter, right? So if you were to go into an AI and say, tell me about meter, most likely it's going to come back and tell you about length. Mm-hmm. But one change in the word, now it might be telling you about a multimeter.
Right. I run into this stuff a lot. I play around with the AI a lot in development stuff, even in programming and all that. And yeah, you run into that more often the more you use it, right? Yeah. Yeah, it becomes very, and if you're not careful, if you're just trusting it to produce for you, you're going to make a fool of yourself. And I don't know how long it will take or if they'll ever be able to get that out of there because of context, right?
Yep.
Because context can be so tricky. And you bring up a great point. Metrology is like the worst for two words meaning the same thing, like gauge and gauge and, all of those type of things,
Yep.
Well, I mean, so far I think this has been extremely successful, and we're only on the first day of getting all the exhibitors in here.
Exhibitor setup today was smooth. I was thinking that I was going to come down here and have to answer question after question after question, but we've been working with a company called Heritage for years.
Yeah.
And
I remember
they're
them.
just excellent at doing things. So we came into a new venue, got everything set up, got the electrical, got the power drops in. A couple exhibitors have told me their booth hasn't arrived, but FedEx
Yikes.
is
Oh, yeah,
having
yeah, yeah.
issues
Yeah, yeah,
with
yeah.
some places.
Sure.
So
Well, anything else you want to pass? So I'll be back on tomorrow in the afternoon here Pacific time. I'm going to try and hit some of the exhibitors and things like that and let them talk about the things that they have out here and that other people might be interested in. Did you have anything else that you wanted to announce?
there's nothing else that I have to announce other than next year we're going to be back at the same venue, and I hope I have the numbers remembered.
Do you
right.
know the dates?
I believe it's the 8th through the 11th of February.
So February's the thing now.
Yep.
You know, hey, one thing I'll say about the February dates, it's nice when it's freezing in Utah to come here. I'm sure you were having the same thing in Colorado.
And Colorado warmed up, but I was in Ohio 2 weeks ago, and oh my God, it was
Midwest
bone
is
chilling,
yeah.
freezing.
Midwest is the coldest.
Yep.
Like I thought I'd been through cold until I lived in Illinois, and then when I lived in Illinois as an adult, I was like, "This is the coldest thing I've ever felt in my life."
But nowhere safe in the United States right now.
No.
I heard Tampa and Orlando
right?
had
Yeah,
freezes.
yeah. Well, there is somewhere safe here in Anaheim.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, the other thing I heard, I got to say this. So we got an exhibitor in from Germany, 1A Cal.
Nice.
And they said if they would have left a day early or a day later, they wouldn't have made it because that snowstorm, that ice or that freeze storm went across the United States and now hit Europe.
Oh, it is? Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know that. That's good. Yeah, I was worried about a few of our instructors on the East Coast. They were very close to some of that. All right. Well, Mike, congratulations on things getting this far.
Yep.
And we'll talk with you throughout the next 2 days.
Yes. And I got to thank you because this, podcast and recording this stuff, this
It's
really
still
helps
around.
the organization. Yeah.
Yeah, I never knew it was going to do any good, but hey, it's fun.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It's fun.
Yeah, and it at least gives people a chance to peer inside here. And when we get the keynote speakers and stuff up there, I'll also make sure to link or tag MSC in it so that people can view those.
Yep.
Well, great, Mike. Well, thank
All
you, and thank you all for tuning in if you got a chance to, or if you're watching this tomorrow, because this will be active and people will catch it. Hopefully, we get to see you throughout the week, and if you're in the area, come on out.
Yep.
Because we got free to come in to see the exhibit, and then also free training. So
Yep, free training and the president's reception. So if people
What
want
time
to
is
come
that?
in, so the president's reception starts at
6, right?
I think it was 5.
Oh.
I think you're right. It's probably 6. I don't have all the times
I
memorized.
forget. Yeah.
But if you're local and you want to come down, rub elbows with metrologists, the tickets are $75.
At the Hyatt Regency in
Yep.
Garden Grove.
Yep.
Right down the road of from where we're always at.
Yeah, Disneyland. We're
Like
just
it's the same street,
Yep.
Harbor Boulevard. So I mean, it's really not that far.
Yeah, so you can come on down, rub some elbows, watch a good band, play. They're going to have blackjack tables out.
Yep, Eagles
So-
cover band, right?
No, Boston.
Boston.
Yep.
My bad.
Yep.
Sorry, Boston fans. All right. Well, we will see you all throughout this week. Thanks, Mike. And everyone, take care.